Hello, everyone.
One, two,
I'm
one, two.
glad you're here at 4:20 for the last session, not somewhere else. So on this panel, we're going to talk about dev tools and infrastructure with people that are coming directly from the trenches, people that are building these things for you, for the developers. So I'm pleased to introduce to you Sahil, who is a senior developer advocate at Quicknode, and he's focused on educating devs around blockchain concepts and dApps. He's coming all the way from Mumbai. We also have Lei, the co-founder and CTO of BlockSec, that focuses on building blockchain security, and he's coming from Beijing, so again, very far. And Bogdan, the co-founder and CTO at Tenderly, who is leading the team around the full stack infrastructure in Web3.
Coming 300 meters away.
Yeah, coming from Belgrade. Yeah. So let's open up the discussion with the question: what is the current state of dev tooling in infrastructure, and how do you compare it with 1 year ago? Maybe Bogdan can start.
Sure. So I think we should also look at generally tooling in Web 2. We're constantly like forgetting how Web 2 doing things. So in the last year, things have been progressing much faster, much faster. So for example, for the last 5 years, or up until a year ago, more or less, Tenderly was the only like multi-chain developer tool, more or less. And then a year ago, a bunch of companies started popping up, which are doing an amazing job. I mean, BlockSec, for example, with their Falcon. Yeah, but no, but it is true. So in the last year, we had like 6 times as the amount of innovation compared to like the previous 4 years. And I'm actually very glad that's happening. And I think that actually came into existence from frustration of dApp developers that like when you're developing on a single chain, things might be okay. But as the future is multi-chain, I think people are now realizing, hey, this is a thing solved by tools, not a thing solved by anything else. So I'm really happy with how things have been progressing so far, especially in the past year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, from my understanding or observation, the tools are getting more sophisticated in the past year. For example, the Foundry, like the rising of Foundry last year. And of course, there are, as you said, there are new developers, new tools are developed. For example, like us, the Falcon. So I think things get more interested and more promising. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo what they said that until last year, there were just, not until last year, but even now, there are only few players. But until last year, there were even fewer players. For example, take a library. Ethers and Web3.js were the major players, but right now, Foundry is full stack, and then WAGMI is a new library which is coming up. So that's what's happening. A lot of new players are coming, and that's just for libraries. But even in infrastructure tooling, right? Earlier, if the node providers were just Infura. But right now, there are other players like Infura, Alchemy, Quicknode, ChainStack. There are so many players coming in. There are so many different providers. And what I truly believe is that we still have a very long way to go. The entire Web3 ecosystem is still, it's in the tooling stage. Everyone is just developing tools. And we are going to see a lot of more tools coming up, and it's going to take a lot of time to get to the stage where people actually build real life applications where normal day-to-day person can use. But right now, it's in the tooling stage. If only devs are in the Web3 ecosystem, the users are only devs. Person who knows how blockchains work, person who knows what the Web3 ecosystem is about, only they are using the applications. So yes, a lot of tools are going to come, and they are coming.
And I think just to add maybe to that, Quicknode did an amazing thing. So it was just a node provider. I'm doing the just because that's actually a very tough business to run. We will talk about, I think, nodes as well as a bit. But you guys released the quick alerts or the alerting feature as well, and did the marketplace as well. And like all of these things, like we have been so far thinking only about this is a node and this is the tool, but the truth actually in Web3 is going to be this blob of technology that they use to solve my problems. And I think a lot of players in the space are realizing this.
Let's say it's a fusion, right?
Yeah, it's just like AWS, right? Earlier, AWS just used to provide servers. But after some time, they started providing other like applications, other like other layers on top of servers as well, where developers can just go to their platform, take their server, and then add on different things, and then it makes their like developing journey easier. So it's just like that.
Definitely.
Yeah, which is great for developers, right? I mean, the more tools we get, the better the development experience, and seems like it's much better compared to 1 year ago. And seems like right now the challenge is this multi-chain world that we all kind of seem to be transitioning to. So can you give us some insights? What are the hard parts about supporting multi-chain world? Bogdan?
Bytecode is the first one, I guess. So we have two terms right now in the space. One is EVM compatibility. The other one is EVM equivalence. First of all, I think it's completely backwards that we need two terms for this. But EVM compatible basically meant a smart contract written in Solidity or Viper can execute on a network. Not execute correctly, but it can execute on a network. And it's tenderly supporting 30-something networks at this point. No network is EVM compatible. Each network basically, especially from a tooling perspective, have these like delicate intricacies about them that you need to correctly solve for in order for you to work on a particular network. So I guess that would be the biggest problem. I guess lack of standardization and lack of documentation, I guess, as well. So yeah.
You mean there is no two networks that if you take the same contract and you run it on all the different networks, the result basically is going to be different?
Not for all contracts, but for most, yes. The easiest way to see this is gas semantics, for example. Arbitrum pre-Nitro, post-Nitro, Optimism pre-Bedrock, post-Bedrock. All of these basically change on these network upgrades, and it's a completely different runtime. Even though it looks the same, it runs the same, the output isn't the same, and that's, I think, causing a lot of problems. So,
Yeah. Lei?
Okay, so for me, I think the main difference, the main change comes from you have to tell the difference between among the different ecosystems from the several perspective. The first one is the chain level, as you mentioned. If this chain is EVM compatible, that's fine. That will be okay. But if it's not, for example, there are some mistakes will be made by the developers if they don't take care about that. For example, I remember just in this April, there is an app deployed on the ZK Sync. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So they use the transfer function to transfer the Ether, but unfortunately, they cannot do that on the ZK Sync era, so they locked. But I don't follow up. Maybe they have some other solutions to solve the problem. So that's the first level. The second one is I can say it's the DeFi protocols that they relies on. I mean, for example, if your code relies on oracles, for example, the Uniswap, TWAP, something like that. If another chain doesn't have that, you need to consider your code logic, right?
Yeah.
And the third one is, I guess, is the app itself. I mean, because if in different apps, in different chains, you may have different behavior. I mean, if you try to make it be consistent with each other or not, it's a problem. So that's basically the three level, I guess, need to be considered. And besides, if there's something like, for example, your assets will move cross-chain back and forth, the extra safety and security must be considered. So that's what I
bridging, basically.
Yes, definitely.
So once you need to move assets between the chains, you rely on a bridge, and many times that centralization risk like a single point of failure, as we saw with multi-chain just a few days ago in Phantom.
Yeah, I mean, talking about bridges, they are like, it's not just a great experience, right? They are slow. They are like prone to a lot of attacks. I mean, talk about wormhole attack like some time back. So yeah, breaches is a very big issue. Then another big issue is, and I'm talking in context of Ethereum layer 2's multi-chains. So Ethereum's main node client, the software on which nodes are running, Get. The other L2s are making, layer 2s are making their node clients a fork of Get or something like that. But a lot of times they fork the Get, but something which works on Ethereum may or might not work on their chains, right? So they do some tweaks here and there, and a lot of time those softwares breaks. And I'm talking from the infrastructure's point of view. A lot of time those softwares break, and they will release a new update just after 5 minutes of the fork. They'll come to us and they'll be like, okay, you need to update the nodes because the chain is practically halted and stuff like that. And I'll take a specific example. For example, the BSC chain, which is called the BNB Smart Chain right now. Their fork of Get was a community managed and community run fork. So for a long time, it wasn't even updated. There were no commits on their GitHub. So it had a lot of problems. So that's the thing. Running infrastructure for these different L2s is very difficult because each software requires different requirements. It can be software, hardware, configuration, everything. But it's changing right now because companies like Aragon or Aragon, whatever you want to call it, they are bringing a single client which you can run for multiple chains. So it's changing in that way. But yeah, I mean, running those infrastructure is a bit pain.
But it's interesting now thinking about it. We had multiple clients to have client diversification, and now we're ending again centralizing to one client to handle this correctly.
Yeah. First they started with Get, and then they diversified by Aragon, Open Ethereum Parity, and now it's again headed into that same direction.
Yeah, but I also think, just the thought about bridges, I really like what the InstaDev team did with Avocado Wallet, with the account abstraction, where you just have USDC there, and they basically solve for everything else. You're not even bridging at all. You're basically paying to a paymaster. It's an account abstraction term, but you're paying to a paymaster, and they basically take care of how money is being used to pay for gas on each individual network. Yeah. You're still exposed to it kind of implicitly, but at least you feel safer. And I think, again, the future for wallets will be you're not looking at which chain you are. I mean, that's most definitely.
Yeah, but don't you think even that can be a security hazard? But because, I mean, the paymaster is like trust. It's a trusted person. It's not trustless, right?
No. So. Bundlers, paymasters. We just didn't have a hack of a bundler or a paymaster. So this will age very poorly, what they said, but so far it sounds smart.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all about UX, because multi-chain world sounds great, but it's a problem from a UX perspective, because people, it's hard enough to explain to people what is gas and how to pay for your transactions, and now you have like all these different chains where you have like different gas that you need to pay for. So yeah, I mean, it's quite complicated. And if we drill down a little bit on the security front, because I think this is something that also kind of impacts users a lot. What would you say, from a security perspective, are the challenges for a multi-chain app, and how tooling could potentially help with this?
I guess Lei is the best one to start here.
Okay, so I guess it's still an open question. So what I can see is quite a straightforward feature. Like if you don't verify your transaction messages, I mean the chain ID, it might be replayed, right? I think it's a useful feature because technically you guys just released that feature last week, I guess.
Yeah.
So that's one thing I came up into my mind. So I just want to ask you two guys, from your perspective, what's the security features?
I think it's also, like, generally if you look at Twitter, we're mostly talking about simulations and forking as like the main thing. Our company mission is to kill Goerli as a testnet at this point. But why we talk about simulations? Because we think simulations are a quick way and a quick fix to a problem that's going to take multiple years of like actually knowing how to verify what will happen on chain. I think if a user wants to buy an NFT and you show them an image of their wallet losing an NFT, probably 95% of people won't confirm the transaction, versus where we have now, you get this hex binary blob, and you just click sign, and you're basically anxious for the 14 seconds that are needed to confirm. Then it fails, you spend $60 on nothing, you do it again, and then you hope you haven't been rugged. So I think one is giving information to users how they can make security decisions, implicitly security decisions, that would be one. But then afterwards, like a bunch of tooling still needs to be done. I mean, OpenZeppelin exists as a company for a reason, BlockSec exists as a company for a reason. Like all of these things need many more years of many more time in the kitchen, basically, for them to see, I guess, the light of day and to.
Yeah. Apart from the smart contract security, I think in the layer 2s or other chains apart from Ethereum, I think centralization is a big issue. And because of the centralization, those chains can be taken down very easily compared to Ethereum. So that is a very big security issue.
Yeah. Like, for example, the L2s right now, they pretty much have a single sequencer. So if you bring down the sequencer, you can halt the whole chain. And if you do that for long enough, it's a big problem, as we saw with.
Or if you can manipulate the sequencer to get your transactions like validated first before others, it's a big issue.
Yeah. And
by the way, I want to add a sentence, because I just talked to Bogdan 3 days ago, and I just expressed the same idea. I don't know whether it works or not, because we are a security guy, so we just think from the security and to the developer communities. And from our perspective, at the very beginning, just like Web 1.0 or 2 or 3, so people focus on how to add some functionalities. Right, and as the time goes by, when there are valuable assets there, so security becomes some top priority stuff, something like that. So that's what we believe.
It's a challenge, and we saw that with Euler. I mean, a protocol that's been around for a very long time, hundreds of millions of dollars deployed there, and then a bug was found in an upgrade that happened like 6 months ago. So yeah, it's a never-ending story. Although I saw the statistic that the amount of hacks in the last 6 months is quite low. So hopefully,
is it the number of hacks or the number of US dollars?
Amount of dollars, I guess.
We're in a bear market. That's why the amount is low. I guess the amount of hacks is still very high.
Maybe
in the bull market, this would be in the billions probably.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Okay, well, let's go a little bit on the infrastructure side. What would you say are the biggest challenges around running Quant nodes at the moment?
Mental health. Yeah, and this is how you react if you're running nodes and then you break up crying. Can I start? Yeah. Okay, cool. So you have Geth, Aragon, parity in the last couple of years that you would run. Sahil mentioned correctly configuration, different servers that are needed. For example, you cannot run a BNB node on Google Cloud, no matter how much money you throw at Sundar Pichai, because basically the SSDs are too slow, the latency is too slow. So you need to run it on bare metal or AWS or whatever. So first of all, syncing these things is almost impossible. BNB cannot be synced anymore. Very interesting fact. So you need to roll out from a snapshot. It's very hard to start as a company if you want to run your own nodes, because the costs are extremely high. I mean, that's why Quicknode exists as a company. That's why we released the node as a service product as well. And then the third thing is that so many things are undocumented. You will get the Slack message at 4 a.m. Guys, we're hard forking in like 15 minutes. We need to do this quickly. So that's like at least the top 4 for me. And then
Lei?
Yeah, we also provide RPC stuff, but it's from our perspective on the security community. Yeah, the problem is, first one is if you want to provide a stable service, that's very difficult.
Yep.
Yeah. The second one is the storage issue, right? Some chains like BSC, they have too many blocks there, and so it's a hard issue. And besides that, because we try to provide some security service like monitoring and threat prevention, so which will build on top of that. So that may require more better performance. That's how can I say, it's very difficult.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Mhm.
a difficult thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I guess you have the most experience.
And
I mean,
Yeah, I
probably
mean,
has-
the thing is that you mentioned that you cannot run BSC on Google Cloud. That's very true. And you will need a bare metal, but a lot of time you are running it on one bare metal company's servers, and a week after the data grows so enormously that that particular bare metal won't be even sufficient, or that particular bare metal provider won't be sufficient, so you have to switch to another one. Then they release a new client which doesn't work with this configuration of your hardware, so you'll have to move again. So there's a lot of context switching and a lot of improvisation when you're running like multi-chain servers and multi-chain nodes.
Exactly.
And it has become kind of mostly impractical for a user or for a company who doesn't do that full time to run their own nodes right now.
Mm.
So
So the
that's
bottom
the
line
biggest
is
issue.
basically it's becoming harder and harder to run these nodes.
Definitely.
And I mean, that's from a high level perspective, actually doesn't sound great because, you know, relying on third parties to run these nodes, it's problematic. It's again like a point of centralization. So do you see any kind of light in the tunnel that this thing is going to become better, Bogdan?
I think it's also, like, this is for full Archive nodes, by the way. So running a light node is very much possible to do it on your laptop. Data availability is actually, I guess, the topic in this space.